Kora Naughton released her first album 19 at 19 years of age. And since then, she has been a Toyota Star Maker Grand Finalist and released 3 more singles, the latest of which is the very catchy Head in the Sand. So catchy that it's been my earworm for many days since its release. So I'm very keen to talk to her about it. Hello, Kora.
Hi, Sophie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You do have a real knack for writing catchy songs, which I will get on to, but I want to start by talking about Head in the Sand, which you performed at the Star Maker Grand Final in 2023. So that song has been with you for a
Yeah.
while. When was it written?
I was actually looking at this just the other day because I've been telling everyone it's been over a year in the making, with having performed it at Star Maker over a year ago. But I just found a video of me in the studio recording this song at the end of 2021. So
Oh,
that's how far in advance this song has been, in my mind and spinning around. You say that it's been stuck in your head. It's been stuck in mine for like 3 years now. So yeah, I wrote it during COVID lockdowns in New South Wales that were happening in 2021. So yeah, been a long
so
time.
yeah, so therefore, why has it taken this time? Because given that it's been with you for a while, in your head for a while, it's obviously been bursting to get out into the world. So why in 2024 is it the right time?
Yeah, look, I've definitely been really waiting for the right moment. I think for me, coming off of Star Maker last year, I was feeling so ready and so pumped for releasing more music and things like that. What I didn't know is that I was sort of on the edge of this burnout situation where I just felt really, really overwhelmed with music. I was working full time at the same time, and I had Head in the Sand lined up to come out last year, which is still a very long time from 2021. But I just had a few songs lined up to release in that time, so it just never happened. And then when I finally felt like it's Head in the Sand's time, I really needed to step back from not from music in general, but from releasing music and from being so active on social media.
Mhm.
It was really draining me, I think, while I was working full time. I found it really, really difficult. And I'm lucky now that my work is so supportive, and I've gone down to part time to make room for music. And I'm glad that I took that time because it meant that I could sit back and I could write some music and I could record some music and I could really plan this year and next year and what's going to happen for me, and feel really on top of my game because I've been doing this since I was 15, and I feel like since the start I've been chasing my tail, and I just needed this reset to be like, okay, now I am in front of where I need to be rather than, running around in circles.
Yeah, it's one thing to recognize that burnout is imminent or that it's happening. It's another to take
Mm.
steps to take care of it. But having said that, recognizing it is actually quite hard. So was it something that you'd actually experienced before? You thought, oh, this is coming around again, or you just knew yourself well enough to know that something was off?
Look, I think it is something that had been looming for a long time. Like I said, been doing it since I was 15, and I was in high school and running around and doing that. And then I was trying to make it work through COVID. I was recording an album through COVID, which was 19. And then straight out of that, I got a full-time job, and I was like, well, I did school, so I can do this. And I didn't really realize the big difference in that. Um, was huge. So when I started work full time, I really wanted to make music work. I was working at night and I was working on the weekends, and I was just feeling really exhausted. Then Star Maker came up and I was like, well, this is what I need. Like, this is the moment, this is the boost. And about, I want to say, like 2 months after Star Maker, I just had this moment of like, I cannot do this. It's just not sustainable.
Mm.
I don't know what it was that made me realize that, but I think it had been looming for a long time, and I just suddenly knew.
Did it feel I don't want to say heartbreaking because it's you're back releasing music, but more like because you have been doing it since you were 15, did it feel almost like, oh, I don't know what to do with this? Music has been my life for so long, and it's a big decision to step away from something that you're so passionate about.
Yeah. And I guess the thing was I was never when I say step away, I want to say maybe step back.
Sit
I
back.
definitely didn't move away from music. So that whole time that I was still writing and I was still recording, so I still had those moments that I loved so much. And I was still doing little gigs around locally. I just wasn't doing the big shows and the festival circuit.
Yeah.
So for me, I kept the little things that I love about music, and I made sure that I kept doing those because they're my little safe haven and the things that I love. So, and I love all the other stuff about music too, but they were the stressful things. So yeah, I sort of dove away from all the hard stuff just for a short time period, knowing that I could spend that time working on things that made me happy and could help me in the future get back to where I was. I think for me, the thing that felt the worst was feeling like I was letting people down. Like people were like asking when my next song would be and where have I gone, and I didn't ever want to let anyone down. So I was like, I'm coming back, I promise. I have big plans. And yeah, so now I finally am, and I can say that I've fulfilled my promise.
Well, I also think, the number one priority is not letting yourself down. And so you've definitely fulfilled that, and that is the wisest thing to do. But I also think you've hit on something that is tricky for a lot of artists, which is the release cycle and social media related to it. Because as you said, that was contributing to the feeling of burnout because so much changes. I often think about this with artists, just in terms of understanding what's going to work on streaming, how often you should put out a single, and then how do you promote it on social media, which is such a major vehicle now to connect with fans. And that change can be really hard to process. I don't know that our brains are actually ready to keep up with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I still haven't figured it out. I have a really wonderful team behind me who work really hard with me to just let me know what to do, and they just keep me updated when I need to do certain things. And yeah, I don't know, I'm really lucky that I've had that there, but if you ask me the why behind all of it, I've got no idea. I do, but I am often left chasing my tail there.
Well, Head in the Sand is out now. You did have the other two singles in 2022. So that was the gap in releasing. But this song certainly is a great song to relaunch with, if we were going to call it a relaunch. And I'm also thinking about you saying you wrote it during lockdowns because it's such an upbeat song in a really genuine way. It doesn't feel like a forced kind of, hey, party song. It's actually a really joyous song. And it really sort of captures that feeling of going to the beach. So at the time you wrote it, was that a feeling you were chasing because we couldn't have it?
Yeah, so there were sort of two things that inspired Head in the Sand. One was the feeling of like needing to escape to somewhere and having that like little paradise and being able to go out. And obviously, we couldn't go out to the beach and just have a lovely fun day and just spend time in the sun. We were inside. So I wanted to write about that summer, sunny, fun feeling. But I also was sitting there with a list of things to do during lockdown and this little checklist of all the things that I needed to get done during lockdown. And I was looking at it and I had absolutely not one thing ticked off. And I was just thinking about how wonderful I am at procrastinating and how I was really, really good at ignoring my problems. And I just thought the Head in the Sand, it could be, beach themed, but it could also be like ignoring your problems. So I sort of turned it into a little bit of both. Ignore your problems, head to the beach, head in the sand.
But, procrastination could be seen as a tool, particularly for a creator. You need that fallow time to allow ideas to come in.
Well, my room was very, very messy. It never, ever got cleaned, but I did write a few good songs during lockdown, so I would agree.
So do you know how many songs you wrote? Have you sort of tucked them away, ready to record?
I don't know how I got through, but I was doing a weekly challenge. So I have a group on Facebook called the Kora Naughton Club, and during lockdown, while we were all very, very bored, I was doing a video every Wednesday at like midday or whatever, of the song that I had written that week, and I'd find myself waking up at like 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning, being like, I haven't written a song this week. So I'd set myself that challenge, and then I would go in like half an hour, and even if it was just presenting an idea for a song and a few little things, then I knew that I would have something every single week. And I made that a mission of mine during lockdown. It's the one thing that I didn't ignore, because I really didn't want to get sucked into the whirlpool of Netflix,
Mhm.
reading, sleeping, which is pretty much what I did outside of writing songs.
Except you just talked about procrastinating, but you were quite productive, see? Like you made stuff during lockdown.
Mm. Yeah, I just didn't do any of the things that everyone else wanted me to do, the organizing and the cleaning and the yeah, that's not my style.
Now, Head in the Sand is a very catchy tune, as I've said, and you have a knack for writing catchy tunes. Your 2022 singles, If You Ain't and Four Wheels, are catchy. There's a song off your album, Another Trip Around the Sun, that it's constantly popping into my head. So you have an affinity for catchy melodies and hooky tunes. I'm wondering if that's something instinctual for you, or if it's something you actually work at crafting.
No, I've actually never thought about this outside of just sitting down and having an idea for something. And I really just like something will pop into my head in the middle of the day, and I'll get my phone out. And even if I'm just humming into my voice memos, and I'll find it 6 months later and I'll be like, oh, that's a cool idea. And that's where half of my songs come from. It's really just this little thing that pops into my head midway through the day. Sometimes I start with a chord and try and find something in there, but often I find that I get caught in the same old patterns if I do things like that. So I just wait for inspiration, and then when I'm sitting down and I'm writing a song, I go into my voice notes and I'm like, oh, look at all these lovely ideas.
So, but even then, when you're choosing what to work on, is it a matter of just what you respond to at the time, and you think, oh yeah, like that feels like the right thing to do now?
Yeah, yeah, and it's partly that, and it's also, say, if I have a melody that I've found in my voice notes, but I'm really looking for this sort of feel in a song right now. I want to write, say, a sad song, but I've created this melody that just sounds really happy and lovely. Then obviously that's not going to work for my sad song most of the time. So yeah, I'm a bit sort of depending on the mood that I'm in more than anything, what I want to write. But sometimes I'll just be like, what's the most recent one? And I'll play the most recent one because it's fresh in my mind, and then I'll just write it.
So you've been working in music since you were 15. Was that the age you started writing songs, or did you start earlier?
I started writing songs before I could play guitar, so I was just writing lyrics and things like that. I think I was 12. I'm pretty sure my parents have a video of me about 12 years old coming out and singing them a probably terrible, but probably okay for a 12-year-old, who knows? Song about something very random, likely.
And do you do much co-writing?
I haven't done a lot of co-writing. I've done a few co-writes here and there. I've done some stuff for with a few Aussie artists, and I've worked with some artists over in Canada, which is really cool. But for me, I find what I connect with most of the time is the stuff that I just sit around in my bedroom and I write. Like, I always say it's like a journal or like a diary. It's your own feelings just popping out onto the page, and that's what I always feel like is, for me, most authentic and what I connect to the best.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is because when I come up with an idea and I'm in a writing mood, I'll just sit down and do it straight away. It's not like, oh, I'll keep that idea for a writing session with a co-writer. So all my ideas are already done, and then I get to a co-write and I'm like, I don't know what to write about.
Got to come up with something.
I know. Yeah.
So you recorded Head in the Sand with Matt Fell. Had you worked with him before?
I have. I have worked with Matt on a few songs. I think the first time I worked with him was probably 2020, I want to say. And I've done, I think, 4 or 5 songs with him now. So he's been really, really fantastic. And I'm always in awe of the fact that I can bring an acoustic song with a couple of chords and a melody, and it just gets turned into this whole big production. It has so much life about it. And I love that experience. I really, really do. I've worked with him on a few more that will be coming out this year as well. So, yeah, stay tuned.
Well, that takes care of my question about what your plans are for the rest of the year. So, are you actually have you well, I'll rephrase it. Have you planned the release schedule already, or are you just going to see what takes your fancy to release at a certain time?
Yeah, so my team and I sat down at the end of last year and planned out the whole of this year, which song is going to go when. I even have songs that are not finished that I'm just hoping are good enough to stick to the release schedule. So we'll see. We'll see. There could be some changes here and there, but no, it looks pretty solid at the moment. I'm really excited for what the year holds, and really getting my songs out there. There are some songs that I was working around the time of Head in the Sand I was working on. So, they've been a long time coming too. So I'm really excited that I can finally get them out into the world, and that I'm also working on stuff for next year as well.
Right. So are you therefore planning sort of festival or appearances or gigs around the release, or is it more just anything that comes up that you can do?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. I do a lot in like the local gig circuit. I still run around and do that because I love it. It's not the big hard hitting shows, but sometimes when your local area comes out to support you, and you just play some live music and they buy an album at the end of the night, that's just as warm a fuzzy feeling as the big shows. So I'm definitely planning on locking in some really exciting shows this year, finalizing the details at the moment, so hopefully that all falls into line where I want it to be determined.
Yeah. And where is your local area in case people would like to see you play gigs?
Yeah, I'm from the Illawarra on the south coast of New South Wales. I travel everywhere with my music, but I guess my day job, I have 3 days a week, and then my 2 days a week on the weekend are playing gigs locally, and then I get to do the fun gigs sometimes too. Not the fun gigs, but the big gigs
Yeah.
sometimes too. So that's cool.
And I think I remember when I last interviewed you that you were at university. If that's that's a correct memory.
Well, there's a really great story there. I actually enrolled in university. I was a week from starting, and then I realized I didn't want to do it.
Oh,
So I never actually, I believe when you interviewed me last, I was about to start university.
right. Okay.
And the week of, I actually had a few medical problems pop up and asked them for like a bit of leniency in the first 2 weeks. I'd just come out of a spinal surgery.
Mhm.
And they essentially said, no, you'll have to wait until next year. And then by the time next year rolled around, it just wasn't a priority anymore.
Well, spinal surgery is not something anyone can really recover from quickly enough
Yeah.
to get to uni quickly,
Yeah. So it wasn't as high on my priority list as recovering was. So
Yeah. Oh,
that's
no,
that.
fair enough. I'm more thinking the university was being quite harsh. And I did see on your social media that you had a surgery last year as well. So clearly you've been through the wars a bit.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the reason where I also felt like I needed to step back for a time. I really needed some time to recover and recuperate, and there's some issues that I will always carry with me, and I might have to have more surgeries in future, but I feel like I needed the time mentally to just sit with it for a while. And yeah, I feel better than ever. Like I'm back and I'm ready, and I feel healthy and just ready to play some music.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And obviously playing guitar doesn't affect your spine adversely or you wouldn't be doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. I actually learnt guitar after I couldn't do. I used to do cheerleading when I was a child for like 8 years, and I learnt guitar after I had a spinal surgery and couldn't go back to cheerleading. So it was actually my outlet. It was the thing that I could go back to when I couldn't go back to the first thing. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like you know where I was going with
I
that.
do know, yeah. Well, and it was a good creative outlet, obviously, whereas cheerleading had been the creative outlet before that. Did singing come along with playing guitar?
Oh, singing has been, I think, my first memory, and I sort of tell this story at most of my gigs. My first memory of singing was at my dad's 30th birthday party, and I was 4 years old, and he'd hired a karaoke machine. It was just in the backyard, and I remember singing "What About Me" on repeat all night. I think everyone must have been so sick of it, but it was my first memory of just like really loving singing and really loving singing to an audience. 4-year-old me loved the attention. But yeah, like I really, really enjoyed that experience at that age. And I remember just always loving singing. Like I would walk around the house and my mum would forever just be saying, Cora, you're singing again. Please. I love you. I love it, but you can't do it all the time. Doesn't your throat hurt? And I was like, no, I love it.
I do think What About Me is a great song for a 4-year-old. What About Me, It Isn't Fair. That's the sort of thing a 4-year-old
Yeah,
would pick, right?
right. And I recorded a version of that song on my album 19 when it came out, because it was just such a special little memory for me to have and to incorporate into that album.
And look, it is an Australian classic.
Absolutely.
What other music have you loved over the years or are loving now?
Mm, I would say I didn't really find what I loved. I liked a lot of music. There was a lot of things to listen to. I didn't really have a specific, I want to say like genre or anything like that that I really fell really deeply into until I found country when I was, so I want to say 14-ish. My first Tamworth Country Music Festival was 2016. I went and just attended, and I think 2017 was my first performing. So in 2016 I sort of realized that country is so much broader than I originally thought. Fell in love with the Carrie Underwoods and the Miranda Lamberts, and then continued on to find like, even a lot of people didn't expect this from me, but I love like Alan Jackson. Great music. And I think that so much of country has really, really wonderful roots and has just expanded in this really lovely way that almost everything that falls within that genre, or close to that genre, is just something that I connect with and I love so, so much.
So that first Tamworth you went to, just as a punter,
Yeah.
did you sit there thinking I'm coming back to play next year, or was it just that over the course of that year you suddenly thought, oh yeah, I could do that?
Look, I think it was over the course of that year, because in 2016 when I went for the first time, I realized that country music was broader, and I liked country music, and I felt like I wanted to listen to country music, but I didn't feel like what I was writing and what I was singing was very country. So it was actually my dad, who has been an avid country music listener his whole life, who said, Cora, these songs are country songs. And I was like, they are not country songs. Stop it. And he goes, you don't know what country is, Cora.
Right.
And then it was just over the course of that year listening to more country that I sort of felt like maybe I could fit in here. And then we went up to to the Tamworth Country Music Festival in 2017 just to give it a crack and see how it went. And I loved it. I haven't looked back since then.
Well, your conversion to country music is definitely to our benefit. Since your new song, Head in the Sand, now that you've revealed that there are more songs to come, I'm looking forward to hearing them. And for the time being, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you, Cora.
You too. Thanks for having me, Sophie.